This is At the 11th Hour, and I'm your host, Nathaniel Stone, but we all know who the Lord of Hosts is. Say it with me in any dialect you so choose. Yahuwah Sabaoth. Wow, brothers and sisters, this is Season 2, Episode 16. Did you catch last episode? That was, things got a little heated. I hope everyone can understand where I'm coming from in the matter. I hope everyone can understand the urgency that I was trying to share, the concern that I was trying to share with those brothers and sisters that were under what I believe to be deception. And I showed a lot of things in the scriptures talking about this deception that I feel is in the body and is growing or has been there or maybe taking root by many of those that are, turning out of the Romanized ways of the New Testament writings and going into the Babylonianized ways of the Old Testament writings. So, I want to share again. I'm gonna put this up here. If you have a disagreement with me, please email me. I don't mind if you talk to me out in the open on the chat forum in YouTube. That's okay. I know, if you have an issue with your brother, you handle it one-on-one. We're in a teaching, in a group setting. So if you have an issue with something that I share with the group, come on, talk in the group. It's okay. Understand that I may not agree with your points, but I do want to hear them because I believe that we all learn and grow from us being right and us being wrong on matters. So, I want people to understand the reasons why I'm sharing this information. I feel led to share this information. My wife asked me to share some of the things that I shared with her. I prayed on the matter and decided to put this front and center before Babylon the Great, before the 144,000, before the two witnesses. These warnings of deception, these things are important for us to understand. In the end days. I am on a time window, a limited, narrowing time is fleeting. I've been working hard to get a lot of this information prepped and ready. So I've been doing a lot of the more difficult studies, things that I was not necessarily prepared on. In fact, all of this so far is all information that I wasn't quite prepared on. So it took me longer to get it going, but hopefully I had enough room to save for the things that I am better versed on in Babylon the Great teaching to come. 144,000. Man, the two witnesses. I hope I can get to it. Please, Yahuwah, help me get to it. Help me, Adonai. Help me get to it. I really, really want to share this revelation. Amazing. Such interesting. When you realize that the scriptures is the best sci-fi story ever written, and then when you realize it's not science fiction, it's science fact, it's reality. Wow, it's amazing stuff. So, but that's some fun stuff in the future. But now we have things that we need to talk about here and now. So in the first one, this is the camouflage SoS, hidden in plain sight. If you remember what SoS is, I'm not going to be saying some of these terms, to get flagged. Revelation 2:9 and 3:9. Look in your standard, King James, your standard English Bible versions on what this stuff means. But it is the Synagogue of Satan, the SoS, SOS, Synagogue of Satan. They say they are Yahudim. Those of you should know what Yahudim are not but lie. Look at that in Revelation 2:9 in your English version if you don't understand what it is that I'm talking about. Those who say they are Yahudim, which in singular is Yahudi, which comes from the two-tribe kingdom Yahudah, which is in English Judah. From the two-tribe kingdom of Judah. They say they are of the two-tribe kingdom of Judah, but are not, but in fact lie. Now, I'm going to explain that word Yahudim, Yahudi, is just like the word Israel. It is contextual. And this is what people don't understand. So the black Hebrew Israelites, or the white Hebrew Israelites, whatever you want to call them, the Ashkenazi and the black Hebrew Israelites, they both are very much leaning on bloodline stuff, and bloodline stuff is important, and I'm not not going to discount those who held the covenant, those of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, of Noah. Was Noah of the 12 tribes? He was, precursor before, but those who held the covenants, Enoch, before him, right? You have Sheth, and then Enoch, and then Noah, and then you have Abraham, right? Yitzhak, Isaac, and then Yaakov, Jacob, and then you have more covenants to follow. We have things coming through prophecies through Judah, as we covered in last episode in Genesis 49, 8 through 10 talked about the scepter and the inscriber, not to pass until Shiloh comes from Judah. Talking about this is the people of the Yahudim, and in getting into the covenants, right? Those covenants that were established through Moshe, the Mosaic covenant, the covenant through Moses. We have covenants that was established through Aaron. We have covenants established through David. We even have those established with Solomon, as we're going to get into. There are covenants, but they all are leading towards Messiah. He says that he wished that none shall perish, but all shall turn from their wickedness and live, right? We cover that in Ezekiel 33, talks about this, that none shall perish, that no one dies in their wickedness. He wants people to be righteous. So what is the good news of the kingdom? Besorah HaMalkuth. It is open arms to anyone who is of Messiah, who is born of circumcision of the heart, those who are of the Ruach, those are of the adoption. We're going to get into this stuff. Those who are of the Yahudim, those of Yasharal, those of Israel. What does Israel mean? What does Yahudim mean? What do these words mean? Did Rome twist a word? Did Babylon twist a word? Do we have misunderstanding? What is the SoS? Well, in order to understand the SoS, we got to understand about the Yahudim. In order to understand about the Yahudim, we went through Yehuda, Judah, and we saw the root word of Judah is Yada, or Awada, which is Awadaya, right? Hallelujah and Awadaya. We learn these two words, which is praise Yah and thank Yah, or to exalt, or to esteem, to boast in Yah. Hallelujah is to boast in Yah. Hallelujah, I boast in you, Yahuwah. It is not wrong to boast in Yahuwah. Paul even talks about this. It's okay as long as we're boasting in Elohim, and we're not doing so with an internal pride, but we're doing so in a properly placed esteem, this kabod, this Hebrew word for glory. We are giving kabod to Yahuwah. We are giving glory and esteem. Not that he needs it from us, but he did create us, and in our creation we are created to worship him, and in worship him we idolize him, but not in the idolatry sense, because he is not a false idol, a dumb idol that doesn't speak or see or hear. He is the real deal. He is the living one. He is the living mighty one, the living Elohim, the living God in the Hebrew tongue. And we are to give him our praise and worship, part of the continual daily sacrifice. Check out the Abomination of Desolation, What Sacrifice is Continual series. Check that out. This is all cumulative stuff that we're building upon one another. We're referring back and forth to this information. You guys, it's very, very vital that we understand what is the daily sacrifice. Well, Hebrews 13, 15, and 16 is coincided with 1 Chronicles 23, 30, and 31. You have the word thanks, right? Hebrews and Chronicles. You have the word praise. You have the word continual. You have his name. You have the word sacrifice that is there. The continual sacrifice is hallelujah and awadaya, or yadaya, right? I'm still learning this word because it's new to me. Yadaya, or the root word of Judah, Yahuda, is yada, but in that verse specifically that we saw in that the name Judah, I shall praise Yahuwah, that word found there is aleph, wa, dalet, hey, Awadaya, Awada, and then Yod Hey, as we saw in, what was that, Psalms 118 in the first episode. Awadaya. So we are to halalya, hallelujah, and awadaya. We are to boast in Yah. We are to praise Yah. We are to essentially esteem his shining name, his glorious, bright, shining name, right? That's what we see here in Torah. That's the commandments. They're shining. It's also a beacon of warning and of light. We're in the 11th hour, Ath, Aleph and the Thaw, the Ath, the 11th hour. It is this is hallelujah. It is shining, a boasting in his commandments, in his set apart word that we see there in the logo that I feel guided to share, of the first 4 of the 10 commandments. The whole scripture is from cover to cover. Sorry, I'm very happy to be here. I am running out of time, so please, I hope to get this information all out. Very, very important. It's been placed on my heart that I have to get this done. I'm making some real major time sacrifices, but it's worth it if people get this information and share it and learn it and understand it and refine me too. Refine me, please. Where I'm incorrect, email me as you saw. So we are to halal Yah. We are to awadaya, to yadaya. We are to thank, to confess his name, confess sin, to praise Yah. We are to boast. We are to exalt him. We are to praise in him. Halal and yada. This is part of the daily sacrifice that needs to be continual. It is going to be continual because the scriptures say it's the continual sacrifice. It's continual for a reason. It's passed on from brother to brother, from sister to sister, generation to generation, all the way from the beginning to the end and beyond. That is there. Well, there's no beyond the end because there is no end. The Father has no end or any beginning, and those of his children partake in this richness. They partake in the beauty that is of Elohim, the Father. And we, if we are chosen, are the children of Elohim. We partake in that everlasting kingdom. And that yada yah, that halal yah continues. That awada yah continues into forever. It is literally the continual sacrifice to thank, to praise continually, the fruit of our lips, an unblemished sacrifice in the spiritual form through the words. That is a clean offering, the bowl of our lips, the fruit of our lips. Hosea 14:2, Hebrews chapter 13:15. Beautiful stuff when you learn what sacrifice is, right? We are doing sacrifices every single day. Most of us don't even realize we're doing sacrifices from the time that we get up to the time we go to sleep. Every waking hour, every thought, we are to guard our thoughts, take every thought captive. We are not to have any idle words. Everything's supposed to be unblemished and without reproach. That living sacrifice that we are supposed to be. We model after Messiah. He's not a human sacrifice as the heathen nations twist that term. He is a living sacrifice. And when he came down here in the flesh, it is for everyone who comes in the flesh, which is corruptible, to live and to die. So he chose to make the best example of his life as he could that would have the greatest impact. And what an impact. Here I am over 2,000 years later, haven't even met him in well, I don't know if I can say that anymore, but at the point in time hadn't met him in a vision or through a supernatural means, and believed, and we all have come into belief. We've come into belief through these teachings that have been established. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful teaching and understanding that we are all coming into this kingdom. But okay, so sorry, I get a little worked up. I love being here. Thank you for allowing me to share teaching that has been given to me. We have one teacher, but there are teachers in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and in chapter 14. I do feel called to be in this position, and I don't take this position lightly. And I do also ask that as a fellow student, we are all students, and we're iron sharpening iron, to please sharpen me. Please help me where I'm wrong. Please, I try to stay humble. I do get bold. I do I am a person. I am a man. Sometimes I might say something that might not be worded correctly. But at the same point in time, maybe it is. Maybe you're the one that's incorrect. Maybe I'm the one that's incorrect. Maybe we're both incorrect. But please, let's come together. Let's come together. Let's restore the streets to dwell in. Let's be repairers of the breach together. Let's get this kingdom back in operation. Let's prepare and get ready for the two witnesses. Let's get prepared and ready for the 144,000, and let's come out of Babylon the Great together. With that being said, we need to understand what is a SoS. They say they are Yahudim and they lie. So what is Yahudim? Well, Yahudim is contextual. And so what else is contextual? Well, this word Yasharal, Yasharal, dialect stuff, Israel, Yisrael, just bear with me, try to overlook, little minor things. If I pronounce, a word on the wrong syllable or emphasis, right? Your syllable and emphasis, just bear with me on some of this stuff. So let's get into it. So we remember, let's look at the word Yasharal. It's kind of where we left off. I want to share, what I want to build on is I'm gonna share maybe a point that most of us should know. Sorry, on my back sometimes, it gets a little stuck. I gotta move around. So let's look at this word Yasharal. Most people know that Yasharal, Israel, okay, Israel is a contextual word. Some people might not know that. Remember, I'm trying to be able to help all people that are there. So if I say the word Yasharal, I'll say Israel. If I say Yahusha or Yeshua, I'll try to say Jesus. If I say Elohim, I'll try to say God. I want you guys to be able to digest this, that are with this, but I also have to be able to, this is some advanced stuff too, but guys, we all got to learn him somehow. We got to come into this teaching somehow. So let's go ahead and look. Let's move on. Let's go into the waves. I like the waves. So here we have in Genesis chapter 32, that is talking on context, and we're going to look at just as we looked at the word Yahudim before, and we looked at the root words and started to lay a foundation, but we didn't really get into the house of Yahudim yet because we started getting into basic Talmudic things and warnings about Talmudic things and warning about those that the Yahudim were trapped in, these false religious systems that Messiah called people out of 2,000 years, a little less than 2,000 years ago, and people that were called out of this false religion called Judaism, which is listed in Galatians 1:13 and 14. Paul came out of it. Peter came out of it. John came out of it. James came out of it, right? Shaul and Kepha and Jacob and Yahuchanan all came out of this system. They struggled with it at times, just like our brothers and sisters today are struggling with coming out of the Romanized Christian institution deception. Not the followers of Christ. We're supposed to be following Christ. We're supposed to be Christian in that sense of the word, but Roman deception in the previous series talked about that. We're actually not. Most people are not following Christ. They're following Roman institutions and Roman ways that Constantine set forward, but that's a different teaching. So we got into the Yahudim and the warning about the powers and principalities that, Ephesians 6:12 talks about. We need to have this armor on us so that we can be protected from these attacks, from these deceptions, from these arrows and these knives in the back and knives in the side and, things that are trying to penetrate our faith. We need to have that shield of faith, and we need to have a rightfully divide the word. We're supposed to be able to rightly use the word, the sword of truth. We're supposed to use this to be able to expose sin and makes precision incisions so that we can help ourselves and our neighbors. This is part of what loving our neighbor as ourselves is, reproving ourselves, and also better to be able to see how to reprove our neighbor. I've been shown this, so I'm trying to share this with you, but if this is an incorrect thing in my eye, help me to remove the splinter out of my eye. Help me to remove that rafter, that sin out of my eye, as I'm trying to do for you as iron sharpening iron. So this is Genesis 32:28. I'm going to show you here contextually, or let me rephrase that. I'm going to show you where the scriptures show you contextually that that Israel, Yasharal, is a contextual word. It depends on context. So let's look at the very root of where Israel is first found. And we see it here in Genesis 32:28. So who is he talking to? what is your name? And he said, Jacob, or Jacob, dialect, okay. And he said, your name is no longer called Yaakov, Jacob, but Yasharal, Israel. Now remember, a lot of times he's either in the verses prior or after, and many times is in the very same verse itself, the definition of the word. So why is he given the name Israel? Because you have striven with Elohim, striven with God and with men, and have overcome. So what do you think the word Israel means? Well, it means to overcome. What does it say in the King James? Let's get a second opinion on things. It says the word here prevailed. So what do you think Israel means? It means prevailed with God. Well, Israel, Yasharal, those of you that might know this, those of you might not, the word El or all, dialect stuff, it means God. So Eloah or Allah, depending on some dialect, is the singular form of God, or Elohim or Elohim is like a plural version of the word God, but also singular at the same point in time. There's some interesting connection with that, but your name is no longer called Yaakov, but Yasharal, Israel. So El means God, and Yisra, it has to do with prevailing or overcoming. So Israel means to prevail or to overcome with God, not in opposition, as in striving with him to get a blessing, not in opposition with him. It's working with him to get that blessing, and that blessing is what? Given the strength to overcome this world with Elohim, that we can't do it without him. So we realize that we got to strive against this system in order to get connected with Elohim, to get connected with God. So this is what Israel, Yasharal, means. Interesting little side point here. Jacob says, please let me know your name. Why do you ask about my name? Right? Who do you think that was? Well, I think it tells you right here. For I have seen, he called the name Peniel, for I have seen Elohim face to face, and my life is preserved. Well, what does Messiah say? No man has seen the Father except the Son who has come forth. No one has seen the Father at all, right? So who do you think he saw? And in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. So who do you, Elohim would be who? Well, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. So who do you think was this God, this mighty one, this Elohim that Jacob saw? This was who we would call Jesus Christ. This is Yahushua HaMashiach. Before he came in the flesh, he was there and was and strove with Jacob, wrestled with Jacob. So Jacob said, I have seen Elohim face to face, but it says no man's seen his face and lived. No one has seen the Father but the Son. Therefore, this Elohim he's talking about is the Son, which the Son is Elohim. And some people try to say that Jesus is not God, like Jehovah's Witnesses try to say this. Guys, come on. They don't even know their own scriptures. It says in John chapter 20, verse 28, Thomas says, my Adonai and my Elohim. He says, my Lord and my God. And then, but also Messiah has a God in Revelation 3:12, or he has Elohim, but he is Elohim. It's, I don't want to get into that. That is there. Some people, it's a point of confusion for some, or contention for others, argumenting for those. But there is the Father, no doubt, and there is the Son, no doubt. There is the only begotten Son, it's called only begotten for a reason, no doubt. Get into that at a different point in time. But Jacob saw Elohim face to face. It has to be the Son. It has to be the only begotten Son. Can't be the Father. Can't be. But anyway, so they try to say Messiah isn't in the Old Testament. Well, here he is. So he says here that his name is Israel. So Israel here contextually is talking about who? A single person. Talking about a single person. So I'm building a case here that Yasharal, Israel, is talking about a single man. So now let's take another here, right? Exhibit B. This is Exodus chapter 4, verse 22. And you shall say to Pharaoh, thus said Yahuwah, Yasharal is my son, my firstborn. So here he's saying to Pharaoh, and he's saying, so I say to you, let my son go to serve me. Well, who is he talking about? Who is the son that he's talking about when he's talking about the whole kingdom? All of Israel. That's not all of Israel. So now he's basically saying all of Israel, even though he's referring to him like as a singular son, and he's calling him my firstborn. Hey, remember that later. Israel is firstborn. Israel is my son, my firstborn. Okay. I'm going to make this point when we go to Hebrews 12, 22 and 23. We'll go there soon. But here we have in Exodus 4:22, Yasharal, Israel, is talking about all 12 tribes. Okay, so now let's look in Exodus, 12:17. 12:37. So we have here now in Exodus 12:37. And the children of Yasharal, the children of Israel, set out from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot, besides little ones, and a mixed multitude, right? Those that are not of the descendants of the 12 tribes went up with them too. Okay. And so what do we have? So this mixed multitude is spoken of here. Now in verse 48, we're going to be building a case here. We're building a couple points here that it's going to be wrapped into basically one. And when a stranger sojourns, talking about all the congregation of Yisrael are to perform what? Are to perform that Pesach, the law of the Passover of the Pesach. No son of a stranger is to eat it. But when someone is circumcised, then they can eat of it. Then it says here, when a stranger sojourns with you and shall perform the Passover to Yahuwah, the Passover to the Lord, the Pesach, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and perform it. And he shall be as a native of the land, but let no uncircumcised eat of it, for there is one law, one Torah, for the native born. We're going to see this as a reoccurring pattern. And for the stranger who sojourns among you, there is nothing new under the sun. What has happened is what will happen. Nothing new under the sun. So here we do, here we have a one law for the native born and for the ger. That's the word for stranger. Let me just double check. That's the word ger. Yes, for the ger, as you see here, that is there. So for the native born and for the ger, the stranger who sojourns among you. I've never, and so here we have, I want to see the word homeborn. I've never seen it. Ezrach. Okay, cool. Ezrach. So we have here that this stranger, this Ezrach, ger, that they are under the same law. Okay, so we have the children of Yasharal, 600,000 men on foot, then a mixed multitude. Now we see that there is one law for everyone. Now we have here in Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 and 2, and Elohim, and God spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahuwah your Elohim, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, that's the word for Egypt, out of the house of slavery. So now he's talking to everybody there and says, I am Yahuwah your Elohim, and have no other Elohim, no other gods against my face. Well, now in this 10 Commandment stuff, and so here he is calling to the mixed multitude, that everyone there, including the 12 tribes and that mixed multitude, that I am Yahuwah your Elohim. So let's see some more. Let's see some more, parts about law, because, I'm kind of making multiple points. So I'm doing this in order as the scriptures go in the standard canon. Here is Numbers 15 and 16. And it says, one law is for you of the assembly, and for the stranger who sojourns with you, a law forever throughout your generations. As you are, so is the stranger before Yahuwah. One Torah and one right ruling is for you and for the stranger and for that ger who sojourns among you. So now we have again more establishment that there is only one law. This is not like Rome, where every state, every county has different laws, and what's legal here is illegal there, and, cannabis is legal in this state, but illegal in that state, and federally illegal, but in this state is medicinal legal, but not recreational legal. This state is recreational and medicinal, but not federal, right? These different laws in the Roman system, and you go into this country and that country, and this country, and this Western nation, and this Eastern nation, and all these laws are different. No, it's not confusing. He's not the Elohim of confusion. not the God of confusion, but of order, of understanding. It's the simplicity that is there. One law, real simple, guys. It's not Noahide laws for the goyim non-bloodline, and then it's the elitists group, a certain group of people claiming to be Yahudim, that they have these Noahide laws and they got to follow all the Torah, but no, well, then it's nullifying the scriptures. That's just more things disproving the scriptures. But so we have here that as it says here in Numbers 15:16, as you are, 15:15, as you are, so is the stranger before Yahuwah. That is an establishment. Actually, I want to highlight that. I think that we should really highlight that. Let's bring it into pink. As you are, so is the stranger before Yahuwah. It's the same. And we're going to see this pattern throughout the Old and the New Testament. So let's go now to Deuteronomy 23:7. And let's go to Deuteronomy 23:7. Do not loathe an Edomite. Hey, black Hebrew Israelites, do not loathe an Edomite, for he is your brother. Do not loathe a Mitzrayim, an Egyptian, for you are a stranger in his land. The children of the third generation born to them do enter the assembly of Yahuwah. Okay, so I know they really hate the Edomites, a lot of black Hebrew Israelites, but it says, do not loathe them, for he's your brother. So when it says that, Jacob I love, but Esau I hated, maybe there's a little bit more to that, but we can go into that at a different point in time. So here we have that to the third generation that they do enter the assembly. So we see some version of a grafting in process is happening. Here is Ruth chapter 1. Interestingly, just before we go there, we have here Deuteronomy 23:3, an Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter the assembly of Yahuwah. Even a 10th generation of them shall not ever enter the assembly of Yahuwah. But here we have in the book of Ruth, chapter 4, Ruth 1:4 says that these men took wives, the women of Moab. The name of one was Orpah, and the name of the other one was Ruth. And then Ruth did what? Ruth got, she was blessed. She was redeemed by Boaz, and Boaz brought her in, married her. And then the bloodline of David, ultimately Messiah himself, comes through Ruth, this Moabite woman. But she was no longer a Moabite when she said what? Here, let's go there because, it's very important to see. She's no longer a Moabite when she said this. Do not urge me to leave you, verse 16, or to go back from following after you, for wherever you go, I go, and wherever you stop over, I stop over. Your people is my people, and your Elohim is my Elohim. Where you die, I die, and there I should be buried. Yahuwah do so to me, and more also, for death itself parts you and me. So at this point in time, she was no longer a Moabite, was she? Because she gave up her false customs. She checked her pagan practices at the door, and she wanted to graft into the kingdom of Yasharal, establishing a pattern that the New Testament is going to magnify through the teaching of Messiah. But these teachings were there, but through his death, burial, and resurrection of this mediator, Hebrews 7, 8, and 9, chapter 7, 8, and 9 talk about this mediator of a better covenant established on better promises, that Ruth is like a precursor to this great grafting in that we get in this great Besorah Hel Malkuth, this great gospel, good news of the kingdom message that goes, well, here Ruth is grafting into Yasharal. So Yasharal, Israel, now she is grafting into Israel, so much so that the king bloodline comes through essentially through her womb, through Boaz's seed that he plants in her, and David comes through her. So she is now Yasharal, this foreign woman, this former ger. Remember, as the native is, so is the ger before Yahuwah. As the native is, so is the stranger. Okay, so we see this establishment. So now we see some more terminologies there, different usages. Let's now look at 1 Kings 11:9. It's talking about Solomon and his corrupted turn. We have here in 11:9. Therefore, Yahuwah was enraged with Shlomo, Solomon, because his heart was turned away from Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharal, who had appeared to him twice. So now it says Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharal. Now it's using it again in the 12 tribe kingdom, talking to Solomon. So now we see Yasharal once again being confirmed to the 12 tribe kingdom. And how do we know that's a 12 tribe kingdom? Because later on here in this same chapter, in verses 30, and Ahijah, so Ahijah, Ahi, would be brother. Let's look at this. I like to do studies of names. I love studying of names. Here, Ahijah means brother of Yahuwah, because Ahi, shalom Ahi, peace brother. Ahi is a chit in there, right? Ahi is brother. So Ahijah, this prophet, right, calls him the prophet Ahijah, the Shilonite. Interesting, Shilonite, right? As you know, part of the Judah prophecy, Shiloh shall not depart. Messianic kind of a name figurehead there. This Shilonite, this brother of Yahuwah of Shiloh, this Ahijah took hold of this new garment that was on him and tore it into how many pieces? Into 12 pieces. And then Jeroboam got how many? 10 pieces, and then because he's getting the reign torn away from Solomon. So I wanted to establish here that now it's in 10 pieces, 2 pieces. So I wanted to establish here in 1 Kings 11:32, talking about out of all the tribes of Yasharal, all the tribes of Israel here contextually is being connected with all 12 tribes. But now we're going to see in the very next chapter, a little bit of a difference contextually. Here's 1 Kings 12:23. Speak to Rehoboam, son of Solomon, Rehoboam, son of Solomon, king of Yehudah, and to all the house of Yehudah and Benjamin and the rest of the people, saying, Thus said Yahuwah, do not go up or fight against your brothers, the children of Yasharal. Now this is talking about 10 tribe kingdom. So Yasharal, we see it connected to a man. Jacob, we see it connected to a Moabite who converted, and she is of Yasharal. We see it connected to Yasharal is my firstborn, connected to all 12 tribes. And then we see Yasharal connected to that in the 12 tribes in the mixed multitude before Mount Sinai. We see Yasharal, Israel, connected to the 12 tribes under Solomon. And then we see it's broken into 10 tribe, 2 tribe pieces. Now here we see in 1 Kings 12:23 that Judah is of that 2 tribe kingdom, and he said, but then Israel, this is now in the 10 tribe kingdom. So we see a contextual difference between the same word, and it needs to be used how it is in context. So now let's look at 2 Kings 17:22. So 2 Kings 17:22 says, well, it says 22, and the children of Yasharal walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did. They did not turn away from them until Yahuwah removed Yasharal from his presence, as he spoke by all his servants the prophets. So Yasharal was exiled from their land to Ashur, to Assyria, as it is to this day. So here we have the word Yasharal confirmed that it's talking about the 10 tribe kingdom removed to Assyria. And that 10 tribe kingdom, if you look up here, that 10 tribe kingdom in verse 6 is that of Samaria, Shomeron, which the king of Assyria took it away. They took away Samaria, the 10 tribe kingdom. So Assyria takes away Shomeron, or as is confirmed and said again, that Assyria takes away Israel. And this Israel is the 10-tribe kingdom. Now, we see that Israel, also spoken of here, confirmed. Let's get a second witness just on that verse alone. Let's look at Ezekiel, Yechezkel, chapter 23. Son of man, there were two women, daughters of one mother. They whored in Egypt, and their names were Aholah the elder and Aholibah her sister. They were mine, and their names is Shomeron is Aholah, which is 10-tribe kingdom, and Jerusalem is Aholibah. Yerushalayim. And then what does it say? That Aholah, which is Samaria, whored with the Assyrians. And then here it says in verse 9 that he has given her. Who is her? Her is Aholah, and Aholah is Samaria. So it says here in verse 9 that he has given Samaria, 10-tribe kingdom, Yasharal, into the hand of the Assyrians, which is exactly what it says in 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 22 and 23, and verse 6 that we covered. So we see Yasharal now is also talking about the 10-tribe kingdom. So now let's look more. Let's let the plot thicken, so to speak, and let's look at some more aspects of this word Yasharal contextually. This is, not that one. Sorry. There we go. This is Romans chapter 9, and we need to go into Romans chapter 9:6. However, it is not as though the word of Elohim, the word of God, has failed, for they are not all Israel who are of Israel. They're not Yasharal who are of Yasharal. So that word is a play on words, as you can see here in the footnote. I agree with that as a play on words. He's basically saying that they are not overcomers who are the overcomers. Or, in other words, he's saying, not all those of the flesh, of the bloodline of the man Jacob, who was called Israel, not all those of the bloodline of any of the 12 tribe kingdoms of Israel, stemming from the man Jacob of that bloodline, not all those of the bloodline Jacob, aka Israel, is of Israel, the overcomers before Elohim. Those that are born of Ruach, those that are chosen, called and chosen. He's saying that not all those of the bloodline are those that are chosen. And this is also confirmed in other scriptures too, that not everyone who is called is chosen. Okay. So now here we see Israel being used in a different sense in Romans chapter 9. And let's look here in verse 7 first. Let's put that just after that, excuse me. We'll look at 7 and 8. So we had 9, 6. Now let's look at 7 and 8. Neither are they all children, because they are all in the seed of Abraham, but in Yitzchak, in Isaac your seed shall be called. That is, those who are the children of the flesh. Now this is confirming that verse 6 is talking about not all those of Israel are Israel, not all those of the flesh are the spirit. Here in verse 8, let scripture define scripture 2 verses later. That is, those who are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of Elohim, but the children of the promise are reckoned as the seed. And we will cover here in Galatians chapter 3 and some places here soon that he's talking about the seed of Messiah, and that we as adopted sons are of Abraham if we are of Messiah. So we have here in Romans 9:4, just shortly up, now we're going to put it in context in the other direction. Who are the children? He says, my relatives according to the flesh. So we're talking about my relatives according to the flesh, who are the children of Israel. So he's saying that the flesh, the children of Israel by flesh, to whom is the adoption and the kabod, the esteem, the glory, and the brit, the covenants, britim, right? The covenants, and the giving of the Torah, giving of the law, and the worship and the promises, who are the fathers and from whom is the Messiah according to the flesh, right? Deliverance is of the Yahudim. Yahushua is of the Yahudim. Of course, yeah. He came through that bloodline because that's the bloodline that needed to get established from Genesis 3:15. Remember, he wishes that none shall perish, but there is a strategic order that had to happen. The covenants had to get put in place. It had to be given to somebody. It had to be given to some group of people. So he picked someone that was righteous, the most righteous person, the person that the Father thought was the cream of the crop, and then established covenants through him, and then worked with that family, worked with that bloodline, even though that family did a lot of wicked, bad things. Ultimately, they were contracted by Yahuwah, and they were part of that original bloodline that stems back from Adam and Sheth and Enoch and Noach and Abraham and Isaac and Yitzchak and Ruth and Boaz and King Daud, and coming into Messiah, that this had to be established. All these covenants that were established with everyone needed to be established to pave the way for Messiah so that he can remove sin, because sin entered in through the first Adam. So the second Adam, the greater Adam, the man of spirit, 1 Corinthians 15 talks about this. Read like 40 through 53. Read the whole chapter. Read the whole book. Read the whole book of books. To understand this is that this covenants, these promises, needed to be established, not so that he could pick a special bloodline so that people could boast in their blood, but because of the way the system was created, it had to happen that way. That's how it was created. It's simple causality, cause and effect. Sin entered in the world, so therefore sin needed to get removed from the world if the world was to be saved. Well, our loving Father wants to save us even while we were sinners, so he sends his only begotten Son while we are sinners, and removes the law of sin and death so that we can come into repentance and have this blood guilt, this sin that is upon us. He bought and paid for us with a perfect redemption, a living sacrifice that smashed the satanic formation, game pieces, smashed the satanic deception, smashed Satan's kingdom into smithereens before the foundation of the world, and we're just going through the motions, so to speak, but we also have a battle to fight, and we can't give up, and we can't be armchair Christians. We can't be Torah terrorists living only sitting in our homes. This is a living Torah. We walk it out. We have to share this truth, share this information, help our brothers and sisters. But first, we have to refine ourselves from the inside before we can start helping those outside. We'll get into these establishment points later on. So we see here that Paul is saying in chapter Romans 9:4 about the children of Israel, to whom is this adoption, the esteem, the covenants, the giving of the Torah, the worship, the promises, the fathers, from whom is the Messiah according to the flesh. But then he's saying, after he talks about the flesh, amen, he says here, however, it is not as though the word of Elohim has failed, because they are not all Israel who are of Israel. What is he saying? Well, there are prophecies that we're going to get into later that says that not all of those, the flesh, are saved. You heard this term, all those who are Yahudim are saved. Well, again, we're going to establish that this word Yahudim is a twisted, manipulated word, so people of a certain bloodline, of whatever bloodline that claims to be Yahudim, can feel comfortable in their sins, and that they can do whatever, and that they're untouchable, and they don't have to make any repentance, and they don't have to worry about getting thrown into Gehenna because they're born in a silver spoon in their mouth, and their daddy's daddy knew someone who was connected to Abraham. Therefore, because Abraham is their bloodline, they don't have to worry about going to second death and losing out on the promises that was given into their daddy's daddy. Because these doctrines of devils, these doctrines of demons, are meant to keep people complacent. It's meant the Romanized Christian versions of the Romanized institutions of Christianity that distort a false gospel message, a false Jesus message. 2 Corinthians chapter 11:4 talks about this. Galatians chapter 1 talks about this false message. It's meant for people to think that all they have to do is confess with their lip service mouth that they believe in Jesus and that's it. Well, it's meant to keep people complacent so they don't have to worry about working on righteousness and doing good works and studying to learn the Father so they can understand what pleases him and so on and so forth. So it's meant to make them complacent so they can live and wallow in their sin. Likewise, on the other end of the spectrum, people that think that they can rest in their bloodline from being of a chosen bloodline, and arguably are a lot of the people actually of the bloodline? Are they actually of that bloodline that is stemming from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Well, I think at the very end, maybe in the third part of this series, some people might be really shocked at some information that I'm going to share about the SoS, not just regarding the spiritual understanding, but also regarding the fleshly understanding of those who say they are Yahudim and are not, and lie, and are a synagogue of Satan. Powers and principalities, but also that it works its ways through improper understanding through fleshly bloodlines as well. So let's move forward. Is that some of the prophecies as Romans 9:6 is pointing to, that there are prophecies in the Old and New Testament that point that not all of those of the bloodline of Jacob are going to make it into salvation, are going to make it into Yasha, as not everyone makes it in. Some people think that the whole world and everyone makes it in. Well, that's going to prove Revelation chapter 9 a liar. It's going to prove Revelation chapter 19, 20, and Revelation 20:10 a liar, because not everyone does. It's going to prove a lot of places in the scriptures a liar. It's going to prove 2nd Esdras chapter 8 verses 1 through 3 that this world now is made for many, but the world to come is made for few. Matthew chapter 7, 13 and 14, few make it into this. Broad and wide is the path leading to destruction. My own personal testimony, I saw a whole river full of droplets of people of water going into destruction. I am here because of the golden drops and to try to help people from deception. It's part of my own personal testimony and my own personal mission, from a vision that I got called into Torah through. So, and I can share my testimony maybe in season 3. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time in season 2. So, to go over it. So let's get back onto the scriptures. So what is he talking about? Adoption. You see here as it talks about here, though in verse 9, Romans 9:8, those who are of the children of flesh, these are not the children of Elohim, but the children of promise, as reckoned as seed. So what is this children of flesh, and what is this children of promise? What is it that they are talking about? Well, let's go into Galatians chapter 3. Verse 15, we cover this in the first episode of this series. Brothers, as a man I say it, a covenant, even though it is a man's, yet if it is confirmed, no one sets it aside or adds to it. But the promises were spoken to Abraham and to his seed. He does not say and to seeds, as of many, but as of one, and to your seed, who is Messiah, period, mic drop, right? That's Messiah, seed, singular. But that seed is spread out to who? To who? Only to the bloodline? Because Genesis 17:7, Genesis 22:18, Genesis 24:7 is talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in these covenants that were given. But what does it say here? Continuing on in verse 26, it says, "For you are all sons of Elohim through Amunah, through faith in Messiah Yahushua, in Jesus Christ. For as many of you who were immersed, baptized into Messiah, have been put on Messiah. There is not Yahudi nor Greek, there is not slave nor free, there is not male and female, for you are all achad, you are all one." That is the same word for achad in John chapter 17. I wish that you are achad as we are achad. You are one as we are one. That's the same word for achad here. And he says, "For you are all one in Messiah Yahushua." Talking about Yahudi nor Greek. Now, is he talking about just the Greek bloodline? Just those of Helen? The Hellenization? No, this is a code word, basically a term of speech talking about someone who is not of of that kingdom, that has not been grafted in to Yahudi, whether in flesh or in spirit, according to the common understanding. He's saying that it's not Yahudi nor Greek, nor is there slave nor free. There is not male and female, for you are all one in Messiah Yahushua. So he's saying here that many of you are baptized and put on Messiah, that you are all sons through faith in Messiah. So he is saying that we are adopted. Now we're gonna get into that adoption here a little bit, but let's first look at some Old Testament prophecy that is connected with what he is talking about. Let's look in Ezekiel, Yechezkel, in the last 3 verses of the chapter. And you shall divide this land among yourselves according to the tribes of Yasharel. So now it's talking about the 12 tribes of Yasharel. So now it's being used in a 12-tribe format. But watch else how this is used. And it shall be that you divide it by lot as an inheritance for yourselves and for the, there it is again, strangers who sojourn in your midst and who bear children among you, and they shall be to you as native born among the children of Yasharel. With you they have an inheritance in the midst of the tribes of Yasharel. So they have an inheritance. We have this, whoever are of the bloodline and whoever are not of the bloodline, quite frankly, on the ultimate sense of things, it really is inconsequential. Ultimately, everlasting life is everlasting life. Whether people were of the bloodline that Yahuwah had to pick a covenant through, or people that are adopted as sons, that was eventually what the ultimate plan from the beginning is, that sin entered into what? Adamim, the mankind, Adam, the Adamites, those of flesh and blood, this system that we are in, those that are now imperfect, sin entered into the world, and he wants all to be saved. But obviously not everyone's going to listen. And only those who are of Elohim hear the words of Elohim. We see that in, John chapter 8. Where is that at? Verses maybe 48, 49, talking about that. He who is of Elohim hears the words of Elohim. We also see that in 1 John chapter 4, verse 6, that this we know, that we are of Elohim, hear the words of Elohim. By this we know the spirit of truth and the spirit of delusion. These things are there, that people that are able to differentiate this. But here we have that with you they have an inheritance in the midst of the tribes of Israel, meaning that through that bloodline that had to get established as a structure of causality in this finite world that we are in. Ultimately, the ultimate plan for the everlasting building was that a temporary fleshly structure scaffolding had to get built until Messiah comes in the flesh, and then he lives and dies and then resurrects and ascends into heaven and paves the way as the first fruits of first fruits, and sits at the right hand of Elohim, our Moshiach, HaMashiach, and those that are of Messiah are able to be adopted as these sons, whether their bloodline is of the 12 tribes or they are just of the nations that have grafted into the 12 tribes. Everlasting life is everlasting life. The good news of the kingdom is that it is meant, and it has always been meant, for anyone to come in as long as they check their false religion, check their false gods, check their deception, their Satanism at the door, and go through the process and seek after that blessing. Like the woman in, I'm ad-libbing here. I don't want to go there, but it's in Matthew chapter 15. I just don't want to lose my place. It's talking about the woman who had her daughter who was possessed by a demon. And Messiah says in Matthew 15:23, I was not sent except for the lost, the sheep of the house of Israel. And then he basically calls her a dog, and she says that even dogs eat from the crumbs from the table, from the children. And then he says that by your faith, your daughter has been healed. So he did help her out and to cast that demon out, and you better believe she became a believer and a follower at that point in time. That the blessings is that people that are of the Amunah, that have shown themselves to be of that Ruach, shown themselves to have that character, that name, that power and authority, that good oil poured forth. Song of Solomon chapter 1 verse 3, your name is oil poured forth, good oil poured forth. His name, character, and authority, that faith is counted as righteousness. And when people are also showing good deeds and righteous deeds through exposing their faith in the good sense, then this is counted to them as righteousness. Israel has always been grafting in people that are true believers, but it was really manifested into its fullness when Messiah took that covenant of the Mosaic covenant, which was broken as soon as it was made at Mount Sinai, and then the addendum, in Horeb, that was made. Deuteronomy chapter 29 talks about this. That it was eventually made to get renewed, Brit Chadashah, by a better mediator built on better covenants. This everlasting kingdom had to get established, but it had to go through a system, and that system was that sinful flesh until Messiah was able to live and die perfectly, but to take that sin of the world upon him. And as he goes into Sheol, it couldn't hold him because he was perfect. And so he was able to come out with the keys of sin and death, or the keys of Sheol, which overcome us from the law of sin and death. And then here we are today. But, getting back into it is that Ezekiel 47:23 says that it shall be that in whatever tribe the Ger, the stranger, sojourns, there you give him his inheritance, declares Adonai Yahuwah, declares the Lord God. So we see here that the native born and the strangers who sojourn, that they are as native born as they come into the 12 tribe kingdom, and that whatever tribe, right, in order to get into New Jerusalem has 12 doors, and those 12 doors, or those 12 gates, are after the 12 tribes of Yasharal, 12 tribes of Israel. You literally can't get into the everlasting kingdom of New Jerusalem unless you go and pick one of the 12 tribes, if you're not a bloodline. But then once you pick one of the 12 tribes, then you're counted as a native born. And from there, you get your inheritance as though you're native born, because there's one law for everybody. This is part of the good news of the kingdom. So let's move forward. So again, that word Israel, and I want you to understand, we're, kind of get back on point. I know sometimes I go a little deviated, but please stay with me. I'm staying to the core point. I want to wrap this back into it. What is the core point? Is that Israel has been used contextually in many different ways. The man Jacob, the 12 tribe kingdom, the firstborn in Exodus 4:22, talking about a 12 tribe kingdom under Solomon, talking about also about someone who is grafted in, a Moabite woman is an Israelite, which the king came from. We see David, and then Messiah comes through this bloodline of Boaz and Ruth. And then we also see Israel being used in a 10 tribe sense, referring to the 10 tribe under Jeroboam. And now we also see here Israel is not just used in the 12 tribe sense, but it's also used with the stranger who sojourns and as a natural born and gets this inheritance, regardless of where their bloodline is, that they get this inheritance. So now let's connect this with Hebrews chapter 12, verse 22. If you look in Hebrews chapter 11, you'll see, let's just go really quickly. I want you to see this in 11:16. But now they, who's they? The hearers of faith. Who's they? They is, let me get back up where it's at. They says that, and by faith Sarah, and from one, which was starting in Abel, but then from Enoch, and then we have Noah, and then we have Abraham, which gets these covenants, and then we have Isaac, and then we have Jacob, and then we also have Sarah, and then we have here that we were born as numerous as the stars of heaven. In faith, all these died, not receiving the promises. They were aliens and strangers on the earth. And then we have in verse 16, now they long for a better place that is a heavenly. Therefore, Elohim is not ashamed to be called their Elohim, for he has prepared a city for them. Well, what city is that? Well, that city is in Revelation 22. Hebrews. It's also in Revelation 22, New Jerusalem. But in Hebrews chapter 12:22, you have drawn near to Mount Zion, into the city of the living Elohim. He is a Ruach, who wants us to worship in spirit and truth. I speak a secret to you, brothers. Flesh and blood shall not inherit the kingdom of Elohim. 1 Corinthians chapter 15:50. So flesh and blood does not get in. It has to be that spiritual upgraded body in order to get in. There's many places that point to this. It says here, to the heavenly Jerusalem. There is that city made by the hands of Elohim, to spiritual Jerusalem, but it is an actual physical place too. Because visions of people that have a vision, or they see an angel in spirit body. That spirit body is also matter, and it takes up time and place too. And so he says here, to the entire gathering and assembly of the firstborn, having been enrolled in heaven. Well, what is the assembly of the firstborn? Well, Exodus chapter 4:22 that we covered earlier says that Israel is my firstborn. Well, here is the firstborn is being enrolled in heaven. So that means that Israel enrolled in heaven is talking about that heavenly Israel. And we're going to see later on about the promises and people being grafted in that are counted as citizens of this kingdom, that they too are seen as natural born and share in this promise. So we're using this word Israel. I want to share with this word Israel, that this word Israel is contextual, and we need to understand the fullness of the word Israel. Before, Israel is not a country in the Middle East. As Rome likes you to believe it is. Israel is waiting for what? Israel is that not all of Israel are of Israel, not all those of the flesh are those of the spirit, and in that new creation, in new heavens and new earth, Isaiah chapter 66, 22 and 23, or in Revelation chapter 21, verses like 1 through 3, 4, talking about New Jerusalem and this new creation, this new heavens and this new earth. This is what this Israel is, this New Jerusalem, this new creation, this spirit body, this spirit understanding that these are those that are enrolled in heaven, which is not just those who were of the bloodline, but those who are adopted as sons. But we'll see that adoption word verbatim here in a little bit. But here we have that word Israel, assembly of the firstborn, being talked about anyone who grafts in, and connecting that with Ezekiel chapter 47 verses 21 through 23, that the native born, or those of the stranger, are as the native born, and they pick one of the 12 tribes and they receive an inheritance and are grafted in. We'll see more of this in Romans too. Romans 11 is talking about this. So we have and to Yahushua, the mediator of a Brit Chadashah, a new covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling, which speaks better than the blood of Abel. And then just to bring that point home, in verse 14 of Hebrews 14, this is the next chapter, for we have no lasting city here. Many people trying to go to Jerusalem in the flesh. We have no lasting city here, but we seek the one coming. So just to really bring that point home, I wanted people to understand that who is the entire gathering of the assembly of the firstborn? It's Yasharal. It's Israel, both native born and strangers, those who sojourn, and all those who are chosen and receive that inheritance. So now let's look at 1 Peter 1 and 2. Again, we're going to make some more established points on the word Israel. 1 Peter chapter 1 and 2. Kepha, that's Peter in Hebrew, an emissary, apostle of Yahushua Messiah, Jesus Christ, to the chosen strangers of the dispersion. So here's that strangers, the gers of the dispersion. Remember that word gers, strangers of the dispersion, in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. Bithynia. Excuse me. Chosen according to the foreknowledge of Elohim and the Father, set apart by the Ruach unto obedience. So it's stressed that it's the obedience that makes you set apart. Obedience to the law, not that the law is done away with, because you can't say that the law is done away with, because whatever. We've covered this in previous episodes. The law is the definition of sin, and through the law is the knowledge of sin, and then also sin is the breaking of the law. So you can't say the law is done away with, lest you say that there is no more sin. And if you say there is no more sin, then you're saying that you can't do anything to be judged by your works, which is the opposite of what the scriptures say. So, and the opposite of walking as Messiah walked, because he walked perfectly in the law. We need to do this also. So he says, in sprinkling of the blood of Yahushua Messiah, favor and shalom. So grace and shalom be increased to you. So here we have, according to the foreknowledge of Elohim, and we see that these gers in dispersion, as well as, to the chosen. So he's talking to both the natural born and those who have heard the voice of Elohim to call them out of the nations. So let's see what he says in the next chapter, verses 2-9. We know this is talking about being living stones, that we offer up a spiritual sacrifice. And in 2:9 it says, but you are a chosen race. This is very important to understand here. A royal priesthood, a set-apart nation, a people for a possession, that you should proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness to his marvelous light. Check this out. Who once were not a people, but now the people of Elohim, who had not obtained compassion, but now obtain compassion. They were not a people, now they're a people. This can talk about Ephraim, who said that Ephraim will cease to be a people. Is that here? No. Is saying that that Ephraim will cease to be a people. That 10-tribe kingdom that was dispersed into Assyria and then brought into the fullness of the nations. And that fullness of the nations is a prophecy, and we'll get into that here when we get into Romans 11. But here we see that he says here in Peter 2:9 and then 10, he says that you were not a people, but now the people of Elohim. That they were these strangers, but now that they are a chosen race. Now he's saying that makes you a chosen race. Was he talking about a race in the blood? Well, flesh and blood don't inherit the kingdom of Elohim, as 1 Corinthians 11:50 says. So we got to understand this with spiritual eyes, that these people, beloved ones, I appeal to you as sojourners and pilgrims to abstain from fleshly lusts, means that sin is still there, which battle against the soul. And talking about that by observing these good works, and good works are defined by the knowledge of the law. And that without the law, sin still abounds, but we just didn't understand what sin was. Now we understand what sin is, so therefore we can't say that sin has been done away with, because the law hasn't been done away with. Or if we say the law has been done away with, then we say that sin's been done away with. And if you say sin's been done away with, then there's no way for someone to be counted as evil, which is against the scriptures. It's really a satanic doctrine for someone to say that. So again, he said that you're a chosen race, a priesthood, that you are holy, a people for a possession who are not a people, but now the people of Elohim. He's literally saying that I appeal to you, sojourners and pilgrims. So how is Israel used here? Well, it's used to talk to all those called out of this world. So now let's see in Galatians 6:15, and let's get the next case in point. So in Galatians chapter 6, verse 15, he says, for in Messiah Yahushua, neither circumcision nor uncircumcision has any strength, but a renewed creature. And as many as walk according to this rule, peace and compassion be upon them, and upon the Yasharal of Elohim. Upon the Israel of Elohim. Here he is using this word Israel of Elohim, and he is using it in connection with those who are circumcised and uncircumcised, that doesn't have any strength in it, but those who are a renewed creature in Messiah Yahushua, that have been crucified, that have crucified their old selves, And he says here that that peace and compassion be upon them and upon the overcomers, those who overcome with El, those who wrestle and prevail to get that blessing to overcome this world of Elohim. So now here he's using this term Yasharal in a spiritual sense. Again, we need to understand the word Yahudim, but before we do that, I want to share what that is. So with all those points about Israel and its usage and its variations due to context, now we can come to the interesting terminology of the word Yahudim. Remember, we are connecting this into SoS. Those who say they are Yahudim, but lie and are a synagogue of Satan. They're SoS. So now let's look at Galatians chapter 2, and let's go start in verse 15. We Yahudim by nature and not of the nations. Now, he says that word nature. Now, that same word nature is used as natural born in a different spot, or natural. So by nature, that means natural born. We Yahudim by nature. If he says we Yahudim by nature, then by contrast, he's also saying that there are Yahudim that are grafted in, that are strangers, that are sojourners, but are counted as Yahudim. So he's saying this Yahudim by nature. By implication, he is saying that if there's Yahudim by nature, then there is a wild Yahudim, a Yahudim of formerly known as the nations that is now grafted into the root of Yahudim. He is using this word Yahudim in a physical sense, but is also pointing to a spiritual sense. So it's similar to how Yasharal, how Israel is used. So again, in order to understand who say they are Yahudim and are not and lie, we need to understand that, Israel is a term that is contextually used in many different ways, shape, and form through context, as you have a bat or a bat. Now, you didn't see that if you weren't looking at the video. A flying mammal bat or a flying baseball bat that gets thrown at you. If a bat flew at me and hit me, it could be a flying mammal or a bat that's a baseball bat. You don't know what it is unless you hear it through context, or you see me through body language that's speaking to you. So similar also Yasharal, Israel, and Yahudim, are essentially contextual. I want to really drive that point home so that you understand, because I want to make the spiritual point as well as the physical point in this understanding of the deception of SoS. So there's a natural and there's a physical, as we see in Galatians 2:15. And then he says, we Yahudim. So he says this word, we Yahudim. So this is Paul talking, and Paul says, we Yahudim by nature. But then we're going to see here later on that Paul is also saying he's using it. We'll remember this point. So first I want you to see when he says that this word, we Yahudim by nature, G5449. Let me come to a different page here. G54 of 49, phusis, and that is the word for by nature or natural. Remember this number, 5449. Okay. So now let's go back to where we were at. So let's go ahead and turn to Romans 11:21. And so we're going to see that same word, 11:21 here, that is used. For if Elohim did not spare, if God did not spare the natural branches, he might not spare you either. What is that word? What is that word that is there? That word for natural right there, G5449, that same word, phusis. And he's using that word natural branches, connecting it with this olive tree and connecting it with wild by nature. And there's that word for nature again, phusis 54 49. So here we have a connection between natural and those that are wild. We have a wild by nature, and then he also has a natural branches. So we have wild, a naturally wild, and those that are natural of that olive. Now, interesting point on this. I just want to make a little side point that it is olives fruit that they are producing, whether it's natural or wild branches, they are producing olives, and olives are oil, and oil is olive oil, and this is what lights the menorah. This is what lights the flame in the lampstand, and it is a clean oil. The lampstand is not a candle. The menorah is not a candle. It is specifically olive oil. And where is that? Exodus chapter 25 talks about this as the definition of the menorah. 25:40, see, it's made according to the pattern shown in the mountain. And then in verse chapter 27, Exodus 27, at the very end, this oil is clean olive oil, clean beaten olive oil, but it is olive oil. So we as branches, whether natural or wild by nature, that we are to produce the fruits of olives. That is the fruits he's looking for. So, and why is it the fruit of olives that he's looking for? Because Song of Solomon 1:3, it says that his oil is his name is good oil poured forth. His name, his character, his authority, Yahuwah, the existing one. When we study his character, his authority, his power through his only begotten Son, which is the shadow type and picture of the Father, the exact representation of, if you see me, you've seen the Father who sent me. That we are to have that name, that character, that authority. We are to have be like the 5 wise virgins, as we have that set apart oil in us, his character, his authority in us. Why? Because we've been producing olives, and then the olives through thlipsis, through persecution or through pressing together, is then refined into this olive oil. And that olive oil, which is his character under pressure, his character is revealed. He says, my power is revealed in weakness, and his character is revealed in us. And then that is put into our lamps, his character, through overcoming day by day, fighting the good fight, enduring until the end, keep on refining ourselves and fighting every little battle along the way as we're putting this olive oil in our lamps. The Torah is a lamp. The command is that lamp that fights our lights our way. I have this the verses located elsewhere. I might have said that a little bit incorrectly, but the Torah is that light, but Yahuwah is that Torah, that living Torah, his only begotten Son, that living Torah that essentially lights our pathway. But he lights our pathway because of that refined oil that is within us. And it's all beautiful teachings when you understand this teaching. But again, that wild or that natural, the branches are producing the proper fruits, not producing oranges or apples. Not that there's anything wrong with oranges or apples, but he wants us to produce his name, his oil, his character, his power, his authority. That's what makes us wise, is that when the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the set apart one is understanding. Proverbs chapter 9:10. Love that verse. And so you have here in Romans 11:21 talking about natural branches. Well, we see this natural, and we see this this wild. So in Galatians 2:15, it says, we Yahudim by nature, therefore that there would be Yahudim by wild nature. We got to connect points. Paul is very meticulous with his words. So if Romans chapter 11, 21 is talking about natural branches, and then he's also talking about 11:24 about a wild olive tree on that we're brought into the root. Therefore, Galatians 2:15 that says, we Yahudim by nature and not of the nations, sinners. Therefore, he's saying that there are also Yahudim that are wild by nature, that are grafted in. So in that Galatians 2:15, the word Yahudim is not just talking about bloodline Yahudim, but is talking about those who are Yahudim. Now, what does the word Yahudim mean? Well, we covered this in episode 1 of of this series, Yahudim, which is of Yada, but that word Yada in where was that at? In Genesis 32, no, it wasn't 32. It was 29 at the end of the very end. I think 29:35. When Judah is given his name, it says, "Now I praise Yahuwah." Well, that word "praise" is what they say is the word Yada, H3034. But that word Yada, technically in according to the manuscript, it's Aleph Uah Dalet Hey, it's Awada, which is also Awadaya, which is similar to Halalya, Hallelujah, Awadaya, two things that are connected in the daily sacrifice. So Yahudim is connected. That word is root word connected into daily sacrifice. To thank and praise Yahuwah every morning and every evening. The continual sacrifice is this. It's continual. Animal sacrifice, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, not continual. The continual sacrifice has always been people praising and worshiping Yahuwah, whether it's the Malachim or whether it's the children of Elohim here in the flesh, waiting to get that kabod, that glorious upgraded body, that body of light, that transfiguration on the mount, that we are to walk as he walked, and that is the end result as the walk as he walked, to get that body of light. Is a beautiful, beautiful teaching when we understand this. Therefore, Yahudim in Galatians 2:15 is not just talking about those who are by nature, but is talking about those who are also grafted in, contrary to nature, as we see here in Romans 11:24, grafted contrary to nature. And so, therefore, Yahudim are those who thank and praise and confess the name and also confess sin to Yahuwah, which is what Yahudim means. So maybe you're getting a little bit of an understanding of what it means to be a Yahudim. Therefore, did you know that you're Yahudim through your actions? By their fruits you shall know them. You're Yahudim by your actions. Now, if you pick the tribe Yahudim, then you're going to be drafted into the tribe Yahudim, but every single person that is of Israel, that is of New Jerusalem, by definition of the word, in the spiritual sense, is Yahudim. Therefore, whether you pick that tribe or not, you got to be Yahudim. You got to thank, you got to praise Yahuwah, you got to confess your sin, and you got to confess his name. All those calling upon the name of Yahuwah shall be saved. Those calling on the character, the power, the authority, the olive oil, those who confess that olive oil within them and that light of his light that is in him, and he is our light that is in us, those are Yahudim. So that means that anyone who denies the Son, by definition, is not Yahudim. They're SoS. They say they are Yahudim, but lie. And it's bigger than just like a certain bloodline. It's bigger than that. It actually goes into all of Babylon the Great. Watch the teaching as the time comes by. So let's go forward here. For Elohim did not spare the natural branches, then he might not spare you either. So we are not to boast, as he says, not to be boastful, in a sense of, let me see. Don't be arrogant, is what he says, but fear. So I'm not, whatever. If I'm naturally born, if I'm a natural bloodline or grafted in, it really is inconsequential because look what it says here. It says Elohim did not spare the natural branches. Why? Because they were broken off. Why? Because they were broken off because of a lack of faith. But they can be grafted in too. It says, that you do not bear the root, but the root bears you. The root is not of a bloodline, Yahudim. It says in John 4:22, deliverance is of the Yahudim. Yasha is of the Yahudim. Yasha, Yahushua, Jesus Christ is who? Jesus Christ is of those who thank, those who praise, those who confess, in those the name. Well, he had no sin, but he confessed our sins and paid that price for us. By definition of the spiritual sense, Yahushua is, Jesus Christ is Yahudim. He is a Yahudi. He's the king of the Yahudi. He taught us what to do. He taught us what a Yahudi does. In more than just the bloodline 12 tribe sense, that we are all to be Yahudi. We are all to be Yasharal. We are all to be kings and priests. We are all to be of this. We're supposed to take the positive examples of all those in the scriptures, and we are to make that our own. That is his character. His character is not of just one tribe or the other tribe. His character is all that is righteous and good. His character is all. He supersedes a single tribe. He's there before the tribes were the tribes. He was the root. And he's the branch, and he's that main branch, and deliverance, Yasha, is of the Yahudi, the Yahudim, and that is what he's talking about. So it's not just talking about a bloodline group of people, but we don't boast because it is the root, Yahuwah, that bears us. It is Yahushua that we are connected into that root. He is the vine, and we are the branches. But that root is the Father, is Yahuwah. And so again, we're not to say in boastful, but if we do boast, we are to boast in Yahuwah. The scriptures say this, but we can be grafted in. And it says here, if they do not continue in unbelief, well, who is this? This is the natural. This is that natural, that they shall be grafted in, meaning that they got broke off. That means that the bloodline, Yahudim, in anyone of Yasharal is broken off. Why? Broken off because of unbelief. Unbelief because we covered it in the last episode. Unbelief because of why? Unbelief because they denied Messiah. Therefore, they came under the Antichrist power under the Antichrist spirit, and mixing that with false religion. They got to give up these ways of the nations. They got to give up the Babylonian lies, the Roman lies, the American lies, the Brazilian lies, the lies of all the nations of all through time. You got to give that stuff up. You got to check your dirty baggage at the door. Allow Messiah to wash your blood, your garments clean through his blood sacrifice of a living sacrifice, not human, pagan, wicked sacrifice, but a living sacrifice. And that's how we're grafted in. So again, Yahudi is being connected in with that. So let's move forward here in Romans 11:1. Let's look at the very top here. I say then, has Elohim rejected his people? Let it not be, for I also am of Yasharal. So he's using the term here in the bloodline sense of it, but he's claiming that he is of Yasharal, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. So now he's specifically naming out the tribe of Benjamin, which is under the two-tribe kingdom of Yahudah, but he's not even claiming Yahudah. He says Yasharal, and then he says Benjamin. So he's using here the word Yasharal in all 12 tribes, not in 10-tribe kingdom, even though the 10-tribe kingdom was dispersed and cast into Assyria, and then given that certificate of divorce, as Jeremiah chapter 3, 6 through 10 states, 6 through 11 states. So let's go ahead and move forward. So again, if you see how he says in Galatians 2:15, we Yahudim by nature, he's saying we Yahudim. He's saying that he is Yahudim. But then he also is saying that I am of Yasharal, because he's using these words not just in the physical sense, but he is giving spiritual implications. And since he has accepted Messiah, then he is also saying that he is of Yasharal, of the spiritual sense, and is grafted in and hoping to be chosen. Many places where he says that he hopes to continue to be chosen. He doesn't walk as though he is chosen. He walks as though he's running the race to seek its completion, as we should too, to endure to the end. It's not once saved, always saved. So here, continuing in, let me kind of skip forward, because I talked about this. So now let's look in John chapter 1:11. Let me see where I'm at in time. Yeah, big episodes here, so bear with me. Now we're in John chapter 1:11. Now this is talking about Messiah, right? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. He was in the beginning with Elohim. This is Revelation or Genesis chapter 1:1 stuff. All came to be through him, and without him, not even one came to be that came to be. That's all of the nations too. He's the Elohim of the nations too. And the nations' point is to graft into the root, lest they die. Everyone's the graft into the root. of the bloodline chosen where the covenants came through, which was eventually opened up into all nations because it was supposed to be opened up in that from the beginning. And this covenant was meant to open up into everyone who confesses, everyone who thanks and praises and confesses that name, confesses their sin, those who are Yahudim in that spiritual sense. Everyone who does this is brought into Yasharal, because that's how you overcome this world, is through that daily sacrifice. It's through that beautiful faith that we have, that root, that faith that brings us into Yasha, that he is able to restore us back into perfection, back into Elohim, to bring us out of this sinful state, this sinful world. So in John chapter 1:11, it says, he came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the authority to become children of Elohim. So those who did receive him become children, to those believing in his name, who were born not of blood, so it's not bloodline, guys, nor of the desire of flesh, nor the desire of man, but Elohim, who is spirit, and he wants us to walk in spirit and truth. So here, of his own, he's talking about who are of his own, not of blood or the desire of flesh, but those who are of Elohim. Those are who are his own. And here it tells us right then and there that John is talking about. So those who believe and therefore do according to his name, his character, and authority. So I hope that gives new meaning to things. So when he says in Matthew 15:24, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal, then is he talking about the physical sense? Well, I think he is too, yes. But is he also talking to the spiritual sense? Absolutely he is. So let's go into Galatians chapter 3:28, and let's look at that verse again, now that we have some more depth to the understanding. And let's look in Galatians 3:28. And he says here, there is not Yahudi nor Greek, and there is not slave nor free, and there is not male and female, for you are all one in Messiah Yahusha. And if you are of Messiah, then you are seed of Abraham and heirs according to the promise. So how was Abraham called out? He was in the nations, he was in Ur, he was given a promise and brought into the kingdom of Elohim. We all can have and walk as our forefathers walk. We are to imitate their walk. Abraham was called out of Babel, and we today are being called out of Babel the Great, out of the greater Nimrodic kingdom, the greater Nebuchadnezzar kingdom, the greater Babylonian kingdom, the greater beastly kingdom. So how is Greek being used here in Galatians 3:28? How is it being used? Well, it's being used. Let's switch up so you get a little bit bored with the same scenery. How is it being Greek is being used? Well, it's being used. Is it talking only about the Greek race? Therefore, someone who's what? Let's just use modern terms today. Someone who's African or South American or Asian or Australian, those races don't have any salvation. Is it only talking about Yehudi or Greek? That there's not Yehudi nor Greek. Those are the only two bloodlines. Those are the two tribe kingdom, and those are of the Greek race, and those are the only ones who are in Messiah and heirs of the seed? No, he's using the blanket term here for Greek as in a general sense of those who are in an unbelieving mindset that have not come into the one nation, and he's using the word Yahuda, talking about the one nation and those of promises. So Yahuda or Yahudim, he's using that word in a spiritual sense. Those who are natural and grafted in. So I hope you understand this. So in Romans chapter 10, let's go there. Well, that's not Romans. That's Romans. Romans chapter 10, verses 12 and 13. Because there is no distinction between Yahudi and Greek, for the same Adonai of all is rich to all and those calling upon him. For everyone who calls upon the name of Yahuwah shall be saved. That's literally what the root word of Yahuda means. It means to confess his name, to call upon his name, to confess sin, to call upon his name, to praise and thank him. Awadaya or Yadaya is part of the daily sacrifice with Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Awadaya, Yadaya is all part of that daily sacrifice. And anyone who's calling upon that name, calling upon that oil, calling upon that character and authority shall be saved. All, anyone, everyone. everyone who is born of that promise, as Yitzhak was born of that promise, who has that spiritual understanding in the spiritual sense that is doing the works of Elohim. He says to the Pharisees, they say that we are born of Abraham. He says, if you are children of Abraham, you would do the works of Abraham, but you are not. He calls them children of the devil, and that he's a murderer and a liar, and that they're doing these same things. Therefore, they're children of the devil. By the fruits you shall know them. Not by their bloodline you shall know them, not by the color of their skin you shall know them, by their fruits, by their works, by their actions, which is representation of what is on the inside that either defiles or makes exposes righteousness or unrighteousness. They either expose themselves in a righteous way or in an unrighteous way. And a good tree can't produce wicked fruit, and a wicked tree can't produce good fruit. It's as simple as that. That's Matthew chapter 7, verses 15 through 20. So, Romans 2:28. Oh wow, here we're going to get into some good stuff. Another 2-hour session. So thank you. I am very time limited, time pressed, and I want to make sure that you guys get this information. I am really, really sacrificing some time here to make sure that you get this information. I have so much more to come, more than just this. But let's look here. Romans 2:28. For he is not Yahudi who is so outwardly, neither is circumcision that which is outward in the flesh, but a Yahudi is he who is so inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in Ruach, not literally, whose praise is not from men, but from Elohim. That word praise, I went and looked it up, and that word praise is connected to the word halal. If you go, I don't want to, okay, fine, I will. That word praise here is epenios, and that word here, I think it's here. No, it's not there. I don't know how to go back in this program. Now I did it. Okay, let me go back. That word epenios is connected to an Old Testament scriptural verse, which is connected into, I think it's connected into Psalms. Let me try to do it one more time, and let me try to find just that one more time, just so that I can try to get it. Again, I'm more used to ISR on, no. Anyways, okay, so regardless, that word is halal that is there. And so he who is a Yahudi is so inwardly, and as the circumcision of the heart. So here he's talking about the spiritual understanding. In spirit, he literally says it, not literally, whose praise is not from men, but from Elohim. He's saying that a Yahudi is not so in the flesh, but is one which is inward. Now, the flesh does have an aspect of carrying of the covenants. Covenants were made with the Yahudi, the natural branches of the flesh, and that this is a level of respect that goes to those who were inwardly and outwardly Yahudim, of the tribe of the kingdom, or who are inwardly and outwardly Yasharal, Israel, of the 12 tribe of the kingdom. But those that are only outwardly in the flesh, but are not inwardly, are not all of Israel are of Israel. And that not all of those in the rebellion, of the bloodline rebellion, of those in the covenant, under the blessings and curses, are going to be chosen into the new kingdom. And there's plenty of scriptures that point to that. So let's go ahead and move forward. So we see again that this word praise, is connected to the daily sacrifice, which is part of the halalya and the awadaya, the yadaya. That's part of that daily sacrifice. We are to do this as Yahudi daily. So in Acts chapter 19:7, again, we're establishing some points, and then we're going to really drive it home here. In Acts chapter 19:7, he says here, and this became known to all, both Yahudim and Greeks dwelling in Ephesus. Now, is this only talking about those who are Yahudim or those who are grafted in? Well, obviously, this is talking about those who are believers and those who are non-believers. We can use these terms here in this verse, and it is actually the meaning of what he's talking about. Those who are Yahudim, not so inwardly, but outwardly, but those inwardly, those who are doing Yahudim by either wild by nature or by nature that are doing what Yahudim are supposed to be doing, proper daily sacrifice, not twisted Babylonian Torah understandings, not twisted Romanized Brit Hadashah New Testament followings of Christ, but those that are actually according to what the scriptures say, those that are doing proper worship in spirit and truth, understand what the daily sacrifice is, understand that we as priests and kings are living in our life in a daily sacrifice and sharing this, doing good to others and sharing this message with others. This is what Yahudim is, and to the Greeks that are those that are non-believers, in fear fell on them, and the name of Adonai was made great. So we're more case in point. Now I want to look here. This is a very interesting one, and we're going to probably come to this in episode 3. No, let me rephrase that. We are going to come to this in episode 3. This is Colossians chapter 3, verses 11. Where there is not Greek and Yahudi, circumcised and uncircumcised, foreigner, Scythian, slave, free, but Messiah is all and in all. Therefore, as chosen ones of Elohim, set apart and beloved, put on compassion, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, patience, bearing with one another, and forgiving each other if anyone has a complaint against another. Indeed, as Messiah forgave you, so also should you. So we see here. We see here that there is, and let me go into verse 17 before I make the point. And whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of Adonai Yahuwah, giving thanks to Elohim through the Father through him. There is that giving yada, part of that uadaya, part of that daily sacrifice of thanking and praising him, from Boker morning to Areb evening, and praying without ceasing and offering clean offerings to the Messiah. These are the sweet smelling fragrances that is well pleasing to his nostrils, our daily sacrifice. But here we have whether Greek, there is not Greek and Yehudi, saying there is not what of the bloodlines of the nations and of the bloodlines of that one nation. So here he's using it in that certain term. Because it doesn't matter if you came from those of the nations or you came from those of the bloodline of the 12 tribe kingdom, that as long as you're in Messiah, then is all in all. And then that is what makes you chosen ones. And letting scripture define scripture. So let's really drive that point home in Philippians chapter 3, verses 3 through 6. For we are the circumcision who are serving Elohim in the Ruach and boasting. That's that word boasting. That could be halal. Halal does mean boast, but boasting in Messiah Yahushua, and do not trust in the flesh. Though I too might have trust in the flesh, if anyone thinks to trust in the flesh, I more. So here he's saying that he is of the race of Yasharal, of that bloodline. He is of the tribe specifically of Binyamin, and he is a Hebrew of Hebrews, meaning that he has crossed over of the people that bloodline crossed over. Hebrew means to cross over from darkness to light, pass over from darkness to light, from death to life, from curses to blessings, according to Torah of Pharisee. Yikes. We covered that. According to Torah of Pharisee. But then he's saying that through that he persecuted the assembly and that he counts this stuff as a loss. But then what does he continue to say here in verses 20 and 21 to really drive that point home? For our, may goodness, watch this. For our citizenship is in the heavens. Well, that's what Hebrews chapter 12, 22 and 23 says, is that it's in the heavens. That our enrollment, the enrollment of the firstborn in the heavens, in New Jerusalem, Mount Zion, the assembly of the firstborn, Yasharal, whether natural born or grafted in, is part of this blessing, part of this circumcision of the heart, worshiping in Ruach and truth, Ruach Uat Meth, spirit and truth. So here he says, for our citizenship is in the heavens, from which we also eagerly await for the Savior, Ha Adonai Yahushua Messiah, who shall change our lowly body to be conformed to his kabod body, his glorified body, according to the working by which he is able to even bring all under his control. So here he's talking about just as he walked, we are to walk. Just as he transfigured on the mount, We are too eventually, as we get that our lowly body into incorruptible body. 1 Corinthians 15, 50 through 53 talks about this. So here he is talking about the citizenship is in the heavens. And those let's now just in case there's any doubt about who it is that he's talking about that gets this citizenship in the heavens, let's look at this. And you, Ephesians 2:1, and you were dead in your trespasses and sins, and you walked what? According to the world, according to the prince of the air, the spirit that is in the sons of disobedience to what? To law, to Torah, to his instructions, to his commandments, people that are doing against what he says, who are doing what? In lust of flesh. The law is not done away with because the flesh still has sin. Therefore, the sin needs a definition, and law is the knowledge of sin and is reckoned. Sin is reckoned by that law. We covered this in the previous teaching. In Romans chapter 3, 4, and 5 talk about this. And so he says here that Elohim had what? He's rich in compassion, and he loved us. Even though we were dead, we were made alive with Messiah. And we are able to do what? Sit together in the heavenlies with Messiah Yahushua. And then he says here, therefore remember that you, once nations, once goyim. Wow, there's no denying it now. Now we're getting into verbatim. I stack the scriptures this way so you can understand as it's getting stronger and stronger as we're building more and more of a foundation. Now he's verbatim coming out and saying it, that you, once nations, you were once the Greeks, once of the world. The general sense of it. You were once nations called the uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision, made in flesh by hands. That at that time you were without Christ, without Messiah, excluded from what? Excluded from the citizenship of Yasharal, of the overcomers, excluded from that everlasting kingdom covenant citizenship. And you were ger from the covenants of promise. You were strangers from it, and you had no hope, no expectation, and without Elohim in the world. You're done. You have no way. But now in Messiah, and we can get into the far off and those near. It's more than just the 10-tribe, 2-tribe kingdom. It is the fullness of the nations. He says here that so then you are no longer strangers and foreigners. You are no longer strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens of the Kedoshim, the saints, and members of the household of Elohim, and that you are built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Messiah himself being a chief cornerstone, in whom all the building being joined together grows into a temple. Our bodies are temple. We're part of that temple sacrifice. We do the daily sacrifice in every living stone. First Peter chapter 2:5 says we're living stones. We offer spiritual sacrifices. Every single stone is offering sacrifice in the temple. In whom you are also being built together into a dwelling of Elohim in the Ruach, worship in spirit and truth. The daily sacrifice is as spiritual, but also manifested through our physical life as we live day by day. It is spiritual. We can spiritualize it, but it is also something that we actually do. So here he says that you are fellow citizens. However, before you were fellow citizens, he says that you were without Messiah and you were excluded. And who was it? That you were once nations. So here that word Israel and that word Yahudim is being used interchangeably in the spiritual sense of the word. So what is the deception of the SoS? Those who say they are Yahudim but are not, but lie, they are in Babylon the Great religions, all of them. And we'll get into more deeper of core things of the Babylon the Great teaching. It's more than just Romanized or Babylonianized. It's more than just that, but it is connected in with it. So let me see kind of where we're at on time. We're kind of coming up to the end here. So again, you can see that this term Yasharal and Yahudim is reserved for those walking in Ruach, those walking in truth, and not just for those in the flesh. It is talking about, if it is talking about fleshly sense, they are saying that this flesh counts for nothing. It's only those that are walking in spirit and truth. And if you aren't of that bloodline flesh, then but you have that Ruach in you, then you are counted as fellow citizens. And you get your inheritance in whatever tribe you pick. So again, in Romans 9:6, as we covered earlier, it says that not all of Israel are of Israel. And so we need to understand about to whom is the adoption. So yes, we are adopted through the bloodline covenants that were given, but ultimately that bloodline covenant led to a higher covenant, the Messianic covenant, which supersedes bloodline. But it's always been about that because Israel's always grafted non-bloodline people in, but it was really brought to its fullness. It was really brought to its fullness through the greater covenant of a better mediator built on better promises. So when we say that you could also say that not all of Israel are of Israel, you can say not all of Yahudim are Yahudim. It's the same. You can use the same terminology. You could say that not all those who say they are Christian are followers of Christ. You can say the same thing. Not all those that protest the Roman Catholic Church are protesting the Roman Catholic Church. Not all of Protestants are Protestants. You can play. Not all of Jehovah's Witnesses are witnesses of Jehovah. You can play with these. Not all those of Baptists are actually baptized in his name, character, and authority. You can play with all these terms in the spiritual sense, and it comes to understanding when you're there. So, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close off there. I want to thank you for coming into this part. The next part, we're going to get into wrapping things up. And then I want to really drive the point home with some understandings on the depth of some of the blessings and curses that are actually given to the bloodlines, because I want to give bloodline their due. I want to give bloodline their credit where credit is due, or their what is coming to them. And hopefully what's coming to them is righteousness if they can turn from that. So let's go ahead and close off there. And you know where it's coming. So we don't cast pearls before swine. And this whole time didn't share this one here. This is an interesting one. So today got a jar of pearls. So we have here Romans chapter 11:25, for I do not wish you to be ignorant of this secret, brothers, lest you should be wise in your own estimation, that hardening in part has come over Yasharal until the fullness of the nations. So hardening in part has come over Yasharal until the fullness of the nations. Now he is using this sense in the physical bloodline sense. He is using this in the physical bloodline sense. He also can be using it of those. It's in that because why? Because there is a fullness of the nations. If you read higher up in the chapter and in the previous chapter, he's talking about Elohim bringing this stumbling stone, and those that stumble over it, they can either get broken off or you either get broken or you get crushed. But the stone either you got to pass through that stone, that door, in order to come into that kingdom. But here he says that hardening in part has come over that 12 tribe bloodline. Why? Because the fullness of the nations, and the pearl that we have in Genesis 48:19, a prophecy by Jacob given to Joseph about his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, which are half of the nations and half of the nation through bloodline. Jacob is saying his father Jacob refused and said, "I know, my son, I know." He also becomes a people, Ephraim, and he also is great, Ephraim. Sorry, he also becomes a people, Manasseh, and he also is great, Manasseh, and yet his younger brother Ephraim is greater than he, Manasseh, and Ephraim's seed, his seed, is to become the fullness of the nations, the completeness of the nations. So I would say this, is, what does it mean, the fullness of the nations? Well, I believe, according to my understanding, it would be really, really difficult. Really, really, really difficult. 2,700 years ago, the two-tribe kingdom, about 2,700 years ago, the 10-tribe kingdom was brought into Assyria. Assyria gobbled them up and then spread them and scattered them, and then through the dispersion mixed throughout the world, we see that that 10-tribe kingdom, what? They became the fullness of the nations. The fullness of the nations. It seems that this hardening has come in part over the 12-tribe bloodlines, or those of Israel who have remained true to that are still of that hardening in part has come over this kingdom, the 12-tribe kingdom, until the fullness of the nations of Ephraim reaches the fullness of the nations. And what is that fullness of the nations? I believe that on some way, shape, or form, there's gotta be at least a drop of blood somewhere of the 12-tribe kingdoms, because 2,700 years ago is pretty hard for that 10-tribe kingdom to not have mixed into the entire nations, which makes sense why these so-called elites are so guarded with their bloodline, because they don't want to mix in with that, do they? They don't. But are they able to stop that or not? Well, that's difficult to say. So hardness in part has come over Yisrael till the fullness of the nations, and I believe that is a prophecy about that bloodline getting mixed into the nations. So it'd be pretty difficult for someone not to have some little drop of blood of Hebrew in them. But even so, if they do or don't, it doesn't really matter, because as we see here, the flesh counts for nothing. It's about those that are walking in spirit and truth, and those are the adopted sons. So with that, I'll remind you to guard your heart, guard your soul, guard the or pay the toll.